Mission control. We have liftoff.
Phinhub. Phinhub. We talking Dolphins city. Phinhub, Phinhub. Yeah. It's that Dolphins show. Phinhub.
Welcome to the Phinhub Show, the one NFL podcast you can't leave off your roster. Now here's your host, Joey and Kevin Tejido.
All right, welcome to another episode of the Phinhub Show, powered by BetUS. Guys, if you haven't already, make sure to check out BetUS and use code YouTube150 for a 150% bonus on your first deposit. That's YouTube150. Make sure to check that out and get started on BetUS today. So the Miami Dolphins go down in Green Bay, and our playoff hopes have slightly diminished once again. The Miami Dolphins walked into Green Bay with a few narratives, being Tua and the Miami Dolphins can't play in cold weather, they can't beat good teams, and we came out of that game with the same narrative, and still everything remains true. The Miami Dolphins have performed very badly in cold weather against playoff teams, against teams that are over 500, really. So it's pretty crazy how this trend just continues. And I know there's so many different things to take away from this game. The defense was able to get Green Bay off the field early in that game, only to have special teams cough up the ball with a fumble in the red zone for Green Bay, which basically wrote the game. That was basically the game right there. They didn't look back, and it was crazy. So many different things happened in that game, and so many things that I want to talk about. Jordyn Brooks, our linebacker, called our team soft, and I think, obviously there's some frustration building in that locker room. And I don't think it's necessarily with each other. I think this team just had so many high expectations, and this season has been so difficult on everybody, the fans included. Regardless, the Dolphins still, believe it or not, have a chance to make the playoffs. And a lot of people in the comments will be saying, what's the point? If you make it to the playoffs, you're going to be playing Kansas City, you're going to be playing the Buffalo Bills. These really good teams where most likely we're going to be facing another cold weather game in the playoffs against a team over 500. So again, that narrative lives on. And making the playoffs, you were going to have to face that narrative once again. The thing is that at some point that has to break. At some point we have to get better and be able to do that. But let's really look at why it is that the Miami Dolphins have struggled in cold weather games against really good teams. In my opinion, that's going to start in the trenches on both sides of the ball. The offensive line is very, very shaky.
Wait, so it's not Tua's fault?
Okay. All right. So maybe we can start with Tua. I think Tua missed, 20 tackles?
Yeah.
So Tua missed 20 tackles.
He fumbled the punt return.
Tua also fumbled a punt return on special teams.
He also was, honestly, he was hurt playing in that secondary as well. So,
yeah,
he couldn't really keep up with their wide receivers either.
Yeah, Tua had a hard time keeping up with the wide receivers from Green Bay.
Yeah,
so.
Man. It's unfortunate, like he really does need to shore up his tackling. He really does need to stop muffing punts. And, man, I don't know. It's just, man, he's just so soft as a guy, as a quarterback, as a player, as a linebacker, as a wide receiver, as a safety, you know what I'm saying? Like, but that just goes out to all the idiotic fans that continue to blame Tua. It baffles my mind. This is a team sport. How many people are on the roster?
On the active roster, you have 53 players.
53. So one player is the reason why you lose a game whenever you lose. And when you win, what do they say about him? He's doing what he has to do.
He has amazing weapons, obviously.
No, and he makes $50-something million. But it's funny. I was watching that. I was watching the Chiefs versus the Raiders the following day, Black Friday. And Mahomes misses throws, man. I'm not putting them in the same stratosphere. I'm not saying he is the same quarterback. I'm not saying Mahomes isn't elite. But what I'm trying to say is elite quarterbacks miss throws. They can't be perfect on every down. But it just so happens that Tua has to be perfect for our team to win.
Right.
Josh Allen's not perfect on every down. It's complementary football. That's what these teams are getting. And you alluded to it. You started with the trenches. So let me hear what you have to say about that.
Well, okay. It starts with the trenches and on both sides of the ball. We couldn't stop the run. Green Bay was running all over us. We couldn't tackle, right? Mm-hmm. And then on the other side, our offensive line couldn't open up any holes for the run game. Our leading rusher for the game was Raheem Mostert with 19 yards.
That's incredible.
Tua threw for 365 yards. Had an 80% completion percentage. A lot of people are also going to say those are garbage time stats.
No, it wasn't.
If you go back and watch the game, they actually were not. But what happens?
He was fighting to put that game into a one possession game.
Right.
And at the goal line, at the 1 yard line.
Right.
For 3 plays, right?
Right.
And you can't blame him for not getting it in there. There was nowhere to put the ball.
Let's compare offense, right, to a fist fight, right? In a fist fight, you got your right and you got your left. In football, on offense, you can either throw the ball or you can run the ball. So imagine in a fight, you take away somebody's left hand and all they have is their right. You know that they're going to be hitting you with that right hand or swinging with that right the entire time. It makes it a lot easier to defend.
You're not guessing. In football, you're taking a whole part of the equation out. Right. It's just one thing.
So now in football, if you can't run the ball, what do you think they're going to do? They're going to go for the pass. It makes it that much easier. So, and then let's get back to the whole trenches thing. Our offensive line is terrible. That is no secret. It has been terrible. And the thing is, I take this all the way back to the GM and even the coaching staff. They continue to laugh at fans and everyone else when we are feeling some type of way about the offensive line. There's a reason for it. Even our line at full strength, let's say our line at full strength at 100% health, it's still not a great line. What happens when one of those pieces goes down? What happens when one of those pieces is not feeling 100%? Now you're bringing in a backup or a shaky left tackle now. I mean, not a shaky left tackle. Teron Armstead is an amazing left tackle, but it didn't look like that in Green Bay. And for good reason. There's context behind that. The guy is playing injured week to week in order to make this offensive line halfway decent. And also, Tua is masking some of those deficiencies on the line too with his quick throws. But
with his movement in the pocket too.
There's just so much to take away from this game and so many things that we can continue talking about.
But to add on to the line really fast, more than half of your line is made out of backups. Because Rob Jones is not a starting left guard. Liam Eichenberg is not a starting right guard. And Kendall Lamb is obviously not a starting right tackle. He's actually more comfortable on the left side, but he's a swing tackle. How is that a recipe to win?
It's not. It's not. What I really want to hit home here, though, is I want people to understand that there are 21 other starters in football, right? So you get 11 on offense, 11 on defense. Not only that, but there are also 3 units in football. You have the offense, the defense, and special teams. Our defense looked like trash. Our special teams looks like trash. Our offense was moving the ball, but not by running it. So what does that tell you? The only aspect of the game that was actually working was
the passing
game.
Which is
who
Tua.
Passes the ball? It's Tua. And I'm not going to say Tua had a perfect game. He did miss on a couple throws. But the thing is that not everybody can be, he can't be perfect in every single play. Patrick Mahomes is not perfect on every play. Josh Allen isn't perfect in every play. Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson, the list goes on for any quarterback that you want to consider elite. And I just think that what we need to do is we need to focus on other aspects of the game. And I think as fans, we owe it to ourselves to say, hey, look, we haven't had a quarterback that's decent since Dan Marino. Tua is here, and he's not Dan Marino. He's not Patrick Mahomes, and that's understood. Those guys are generational. They're once in a lifetime. They're really hard to come by. We went 20-something years before Tua got here, and now we're actually having quarterbacks who are in the top 5 statistically every single season. That's pretty amazing.
Yep.
And I'm happy with that. I'm not happy with the losing aspect, and I understand that he still has the ability to grow. But I also think that the Miami Dolphins, as a franchise, need to do a better job with the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball. I think the Dolphins need to become more physical. If we're going to continue playing in these cold weather games, which you need to play in cold weather games above 500 teams if you want to be in the playoffs, if you want to be a true contender, you need to be able to do those two things. What do you need? What's the recipe for that? The line of scrimmage and physicality on both sides of the ball. You need to be able to run the ball. We are running devon, achane, who's what, 5'8", maybe, in between the tackles. Like, he's a great running back, but he's not a guy that I'm feeling super confident about in between the tackles, especially with the offensive line that we have. Makes no sense.
Yeah. No, and I will say that we do have a solution for that left guard spot, and it's already on our roster. Isaiah Wynn. I think he should start next game. I think they should start, bringing him up to speed. Rob Jones is just atrocious. He's just not a starting left guard. I don't even want him as our backup anymore. Liam Eichenberg, I hope he doesn't stick around. I hope we don't re-sign him. But if we can get Isaiah Wynn in there, I feel like we can start running the ball on that left side, right? And what's up with having Jeff Wilson on the roster and actually activating him for the game and then not giving him the ball once in those short yardage situations at the goal line? Like, he's essentially he's your biggest back. I mean, other than Jalen Wright. Why isn't Jalen Wright getting that ball? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, why are you trying to stuff it with Devon Achane?
Devon Achane would be our least physical back.
Exactly. And this is not a knock on Devon Achane.
No,
I
he's
love
amazing.
him. He's actually one of my favorite players on this team, but he should be a complimentary
He's
back.
amazing.
He's
but
a speed back.
That's the thing too. Like, just because Tyreek Hill is possibly the best player on the team doesn't mean you want him kicking field goals.
No.
It just doesn't make any sense.
There's a lot to be happy about. And as weird as that sounds, as a Dolphins fan right now, in my opinion, we have our quarterback. Now you start shoring up some things, right? I do believe that Chris Greer should be fired. I do believe that McDaniel should stick around. I think he deserves at least one more year to get his stuff together. I do think that really fast. I do think that McDaniel has had some deficiencies in play calling.
Right.
I think he can get better at it, but he has shown that he can put together a winner in Miami, and that's not something we've done consistently over the years. I understand right now the season doesn't look great, but there's context. Tua being out, we're a completely different team without that, and that's another thing to hammer in to Dolphins fans. How was this team when Tua was not playing? It was
I didn't even want to watch
It's
them.
not a watchable product. Now it is. Tua's throwing for over 300 yards, and it's not about the stats. It's about actually being able to move the damn ball and getting more than 10 points in a game. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
We couldn't do that without Tua.
Yeah,
So-
and my thing, though, about McDaniel, and I think that, you bring him back next year, but it's going to be, like, under the context of, like, you're on the hot seat. You gotta continue proving it. I don't like his play calling at times. Not only that, but I don't like his personnel decisions at times too. The one with Julian Hill over Durham Smythe, that one still blows my mind.
strange.
I'm not really understanding that. So that's one of them. Jeff Wilson, for example, like you alluded to, being active for this game and not touching the ball, that's pretty crazy. Devon Achane running through the tackles, I don't see it in a physical game. Like, this is not. These are things that I've seen that I'm like, all right, you need to do a better job in those situations.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, the Dolphins do have a bit of hope left for the season.
So we still need to run the table from here on out. We aren't able to do that, obviously, since we lost to the Green Bay Packers. But if we win out, I do believe that would be enough to get us into the playoffs. I saw today that we do have a tiebreaker over the Denver Broncos if we win out. So yeah, they kind of control their own destiny still with this. I don't think the Broncos are going to win every single game. I think they're going to give us a chance to at least be tied with them. So if we can win all these games, I do see that we can make it. And another thing, I think we were saying that what's the point? You know, we're still going to have to go cold weather game. It's one more chance to prove that narrative is wrong and that your team is tough and that you can run the ball. I say for McDaniel's sake, for the Dolphins, everyone that's rostered right now, it's an opportunity that they need to grab by the horns and they really need to like take it on and do this thing, man, because they can.
So our next game will be against the Jets. I think we'll be at home in that game.
I'm not sure. I hope so.
So we'll be at home against the Jets. Then we'll be facing the Texans, followed by the Niners back at home, and then the Jets again, I believe. No, then the Browns, then the Jets. So the Dolphins still have quite a few games left. There still is an opportunity to make the playoffs. It's becoming more and more difficult every single week. We're going to need some help with some other teams, but there's still hope. So let's see what the Dolphins can do this upcoming week. I'm sure Mike McDaniel has a lot to think about, and we're wishing for the best here. If you haven't already, make sure to check out BetUS and use code YouTube150 for a 150% bonus on your first deposit. That's YouTube150. Make sure to get started on BetUS today. But that's going to do it for today's episode, guys. If you haven't already, make sure to give this video a thumbs up, subscribe, and we'll catch you in the next one. Fins up.